It's hand-carved, it's an arched top, it's got a spruce, North American spruce body. It is all-American, handcrafted Gibson Birdland from the bowels of Kalamazoo, Michigan. Don't you wish you had one? You can't, because I own them all. Hi, I'm Ted Nugent, full-time. What you witnessed there was a guy, a working hard, playing hard, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, all-American, living it up kind of guy. And you want to learn to play guitar? It's all attitude, kids. Now, this is a Gibson Birdland. I invented it back when I was just a young white guy back in the early Rolling Stone, early part of the century. But what we have here is an instructional video to kind of get you geared up so you can projectile your attitude. It's all attitude. It's all spirit. Now, you might think you need some stuff. You got to have a Gibson. You've got to have the accoutrements to play rock and roll. Not necessarily so. For example, you might think you actually need some Ted Nugent hot dough and heat urine. You probably think you could use a little of this. It's not that necessary. You probably think that you need a Whackmaster catalog. It might help, but it's not absolutely essential. You might want to get yourself a copy of Ted Nugent Adventure Outdoors magazine. You might think you need this to play real rock and roll guitar. It's not essential. You don't have to have it. You might think you have to have Blood Trails, the truth about bow hunting. This would help, but it's not essential. You may need yourself a zebra Whackmaster hat. It's helpful, but it's not essential. Night vision scopes. This is something you want to have handy. Your own Ted Nugent hunting knife. Now, you may find many uses for this stuff, but it's not absolutely essential. Godiva chocolate-covered cherries. These are the things that I basically use to make that rock and roll kind of thing. You might want to actually have some hunt music. You're asking yourself, hunt music? What, pray tell, could this be? You might want to have some handy. How about your own Ted Nugent hunting sunglasses? Now, you'll find that if you have this stuff handy, along with one fine-ass wench of a wife, you find your music might flow better. See, if you have one fine woman at your side with her own instructional video. Thank you very much. This might help the whole spirit of your playing. But more important than all of that, you've got to be in charge of your life. Your life must be in your hands. Hands help if you want to play guitar, but mostly your life should be in your hands. Remember, your life is like an arrow. You can either put it in the bullseye or you can shoot yourself in the foot. Being that as it may, you've got to be in control. That means sensuality, my friends. All that greasy, wonderful guitar playing you just witnessed, now I got to tell you, I want you to realize that I just came in after about 39 days in the swamp. I haven't touched a guitar in 39 plus days. You know why? Because I like diversionary tactics. You've got to seek out extremes. If you want to play intense, voluminous rock and roll, dripping with grease and attitude, you've got to escape once in a while. Take a deep breath, realign the attitude, make sure the spirit is running at optimum charge. Then when you get back to the guitar, even at the tender age of 46, you will have that youthful, spirited attitude of craving the instrument, craving adventure. This, my friends, is just a lump of cedar, strings, frets, and I love this part here. It's just sounds. All of the rock and roll you want to make, all the music you want to project has got to come from you. It's got to come from your guts. It's got to come from your soul. It's got to come from, this is the main lick right here, this is the main attraction. It's got to come from attitude. You've got to have attitude. Now, back when I invented attitude, I promised I would share it with the civilians. So if you're good, you may have a little sniff downwind of my attitude. It's the beatitude of the attitude. I'm going to give you some basic structures here. For example, when you're playing, you've got to get a sound. Now, this may sound unbelievable, which I'm sure it is, but ultimately this is just a Gibson guitar with a cord plugged into a PV amplifier. It's as simple as that. Now, it might sound more than that, but it's not. It's all coming. Ooh, it's starting to talk to me now. It's just a guitar and an amplifier. You know, if you had venison backstraps stacked in the freezer like I do, you could do that too. It's all got to come from your heart and soul. If you crave rock and roll, if you crave making these musical statements, then you will put your heart and soul into it. You will do the best you can do, and then you will be happy. And if you are happy, if you are gratified and satisfied and on the road to pleasuredom, then you will continue to put your heart and soul into it. You will not allow poisons, stupidity, excess baggage, and toxic warfare to get in the way of your vision. Now let's show you what my vision started with. It started with, and if you don't know this, we'll get you a bib. You've got to know the basics of honky-tonk. That is where it all started from. I was turned on by Chuck Berry and Duane Eddy and Dick Dale and the Deltones and Lonnie Mack and all the original twang masters. And if you seek out the sources of the original rock and roll, then you can take it any place. And then later in life, you will notice that the meat of your hand is very important in getting the guts of the sound out. And then you will take that honky-tonk kind of thing and you will go, I think I'd rather do it my way. And you turn it up almost 3/4 of the way on the treble pickup, and if you keep the meat of your hand on the strings, and if you have a lot of short skirts in your neighborhood, you will play stuff like this. Now, if you can play it perfect like that, I will come to your house and because you're not going to be able to do it. I love that. This is a guitar instructional video, kids, and the beeps are on me. So if what you do, if you put your heart and soul into it, and you keep that instrument in your control like your life, you'll be able to come up with those big, grunting, sonic bombast projectiles from your guts, including such little ditties as... It's so simple, it's stupid. Now I'm going to show you some of the basics of some of my favorite licks. That was Cat Scratch Fever and Stranglehold, obviously. But there's this lick and free-for-all a lot of kids ask me about, a lot of kids like me, and they ask me how do you get that big chord. And basically I like all the open strings, all the open, twanging, ringing, resonating, ricocheting strings you can possibly milk out of guitar chords. So what I do is I play the Nugent mutilated E chord. And it goes like this because it's full of open strings. And then I play it like a huge black guy in Motown.
Never before have I turned on you. You look too good to me. Your beady eyes come in too. I just can't let you be. And it's beef for all and a heart is said. You can bet your life. Stakes out high, so am I. It's in the air tonight.
It's so simple, it's stupid. But I do throw my toggle switch when it's time to do the one unison pattern with the bass and the other guitar. And I go from both pickups, so I get that big resonating twanging sound, to the treble pickup where I muff it with the meat of my hand and I play it like this. And then the real trick to that song is another guitar part in there that goes like this. It's not all as it appears. And then when you put all those things together, this huge, sexy rhythm and blues piece of music comes out of this white guy. You gotta love that stuff. Let's see, another song that everybody asked me about is the almighty Great White Buffalo. 1994, you may have heard I announced it in January of 1994. This is the year of the Great White Buffalo, but 95 can be too, if you do what you're supposed to do. Now that's the main theme of Great White Buffalo, but the great part about this is that I play slide on the bass pickup with just my big old greasy fat Detroit finger, and it goes like this. I think that's kind of cute. I love slide guitar, but I've never used a real slide except for sound effects, so I use my finger for that kind of stuff, which I think is just another extension of no rules, no parameters, no guidelines, just sheer desire to make sonic bombast. A lot of guys go, how does he do that? I don't know, I just play the damn thing. A lot of other songs that I could go into. See, what would be some other interesting songs? All right, I have a great song in the Spirit of the Wild album that everybody is fascinated at here in the Midwest. In fact, there is legislation pending that you're not allowed to operate a pickup truck on the streets of America without a Fred Bear cassette in the deck, so you might want to get a copy in case you're going to town for some straw. This is a great song. This is a song about a great hero of mine, a great friend of mine who I shared a wonderful and spiritual comradeship campfire with in 1987 and nearly every year previous to that. But when he died the following year, this very emotional and very dynamic piece of music came out of my guts. And I think you'll enjoy it because it's almost like a finger-picking guy coming to life. And it's called Fred Bear, and it goes like this. A little bit garnished for the effect. But I think what you hear there, and in Stranglehold and in Cat Scratch Fevers, you've got a whole bunch of grunt happening, a whole bunch of thump, a whole bunch of pulsation happening. You've got to get a variation and a rhythm, a roll, a drum warfare, tribal uprising kind of feel going when you play your rhythm parts. You can't just play Stranglehold as it would be written. You can't just... You've got to keep the meat of your pick hand on the strings to give it depth, to give it character, no matter what song it is, and then it comes out. Same with Fred Bear, same with Cat Scratch Fever, same with Working Hard, Playing Hard. All those licks mean so much more if you've got a dynamic variation in the pulse of the rhythm part. And I find that that is something I've learned, and I've been blessed because I've been able to jam with the very best. I've been able to jam in little rooms like this with His Majesty Jimi Hendrix and Freddie King and Albert King and Farnsworth King and people like Van Halen. So many great guitarists that I've been able to pick up these ideas from and utilize them in my own repertoire of making my musical statements around the planet. And God knows the planet's better because of it. Now let's talk a little bit about the Birdland. In fact, I'll tell you what, we got some questions here from the kids. We're gonna answer these questions directly. It says, why did you use hollow bodies for years? What are some of the benefits? All right, hollow bodies. What's music? What is guitar playing? It's sound. What does it sound like? You got to get the sound. I love sound. When you want thick, rich, fat sound, this is the guy right here. This is about a 1967 Gibson Birdland. I've got nearly 16 of these babies right now. I believe in this instrument because I think you can hear with a single pickup setting the variations of tones that I can milk out of this because of the natural sonic dynamic of this kind of archtop, rich, warm, spruce wood instrument. And I'll show you some variations. Just on the back treble pickup, I can get your traditional a nice big fat meaty sound like that, and then you can get these great lead tones just by pinching the string with the finger and the pick. That's the beauty of a Birdland. Now, the hollow body also on the bass pickup has a biting, clean sound. Or you can back the bass off and get this real creamy sound. Which reminds me of a beautiful little song that goes kind of like this. Now, I recorded that when I was 17 years old. That's called Journey to the Center of Your Mind, except I did it with a bow and arrow instead of drugs. Let's talk about that kind of influence for a minute. Ted Nugent, 36 years old, having so much fun, it's stupid. Think of me of 50 white puppy dogs on your mother's leg. That's me. And the beauty of it all is that before the accident, before that terrible accident, I was actually quite good looking. I used to be downright handsome. But for now, the reason I'm having so much fun, the reason I have so much energy in 1995 and beyond is because, look at me, kids, take a good look. Before the accident, I was actually handsome. But more importantly, I'm in charge of my life because never, read my lips, I've never smoked a joint. I've never smoked a cigarette. I got drunk a couple times when I was a kid, but the puke turned me off. So what I'm saying here is that if you really want to milk the optimum delivery of your sensual stimuli, your spirit of adventure. I know we're getting a little bit off the Gibson guitar story here, but this is important because you can't get it out of any instrument of your choice unless you are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, cocked, locked, and ready to rock dock, which means no poison, no excess baggage, no drugs, no alcohol, no punky little trends, pierced nipples notwithstanding. By the way, call 1-800-449-NUGE, and I can pierce your nipples at 50 yards. Thank you very much. Drive safely. Okay, the second question. Number 2, what made you change to a solid body? Well, I didn't necessarily change to a solid body. No, I didn't really switch, actually, because, you know, I started playing Fender Duosonic solid bodies. I've had and still have Les Pauls, and what else do I have? I have some Hamers. And I have all kinds of different guitars, some old Gibson SGs, but mostly I went and played the Paul Reed Smith guitar for the last 15 or so years because I think Paul Reed Smith guitars are world-class musician tools. I think Paul creates just the most wonderfully playable guitar there is out there. And it's got a great sound. Paul puts a lot of attention to the pickups. Now, a PRS is real different than a Gibson Birdland, but again, one must pursue adventure. One must seek diversity and new territory. One must delve into zones uncharted. Did we get that? One must delve into zones uncharted. You've got to constantly expand the horizons of your musical vision. And I think the PRS guitar, being so playable, it brings out a different approach. Now, it's got a standard pickup selector like I do on my Gibsons. You've got your back pickup for the screaming stuff. And you've got your front pickup for your front pickup stuff. But one of my favorites is that you can put it in the middle and get both pickups, back the tone completely off, and really get that creamy sound. And of course, I've got to mention that even though I play vibrato games, tremolo games on the Birdland Bridge, it was fun to have a little twang bar here once in a while. And on a song called Little Miss Dangerous, I dialed in a very special Nugent Paul Reed Smith sound with the second from last position, which I lovingly refer to as the Black & Decker sound. It's got a kind of a biting effect. It really kind of pisses off the country and western guys, but they can use that once in a while. And it's got a real neat twang that I use with the tremolo arm, and it goes. Kind of a nice sound. So that's why I sometimes diversify and try different instruments to keep me on my toes. So we have number 3. You are a master of controlled feedback. Have you noticed this? Show some tricks. What are your some pointers for harnessing and taming the beast? Standing in certain areas? Yes, indeed. All right. The almighty Gibson Birdland guitar. These guys designed this. Charlie Bird and his comrades designed this guitar as a jazz instrument. I'll give them jazz. A little jazz for you kids. All right, feedback. The Birdland does feedback wonderfully. Mike, if you want to slap the volume up a little bit here. In a studio setting, though I can't replicate what I do on stage because of the sheer bombast of sonic warfare developed by multiple amplifiers and speaker cabinets, nonetheless, the beauty of the Birdland is that you can get amazing feedback. And I did it best, I think, even as early as 1967 and 68 with Journey to the Center of Your Mind by the Amboy Dukes. And this infamous, hear it rumbling in the background? You can actually hear me talking through it. Hello! Are you there? That's because it is so active, it is so receptive to vibrations. I love that. These are good vibrations, but without the spittle. I think that's important to note. Very little bib necessary. All right, so we got some feedback. It's just a characteristic, a unique characteristic of a hollow body instrument. Now, I played a lot with Super 400s and Barney Kessels, and they were substantially wider and even more hollow, but I found that the ultimate balance came from the Gibson Birdland. And let me just pay tribute here to one of my great heroes on the guitar, other than all of them that you know, because I share the same respect and reverence for great guitarists everywhere. But there was a gentleman back in the late 50s and early 60s who I was able to play with when he had a band called, originally it was Billy Lee and the Rivieras, and it later on became to be known as Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, and there was a guitarist in there of just extraordinary rhythm and blues feel and adventurous sonic bombast, and his name was Jimmy McCarty. And Jimmy McCarty was the master who came up with the original Jenny Take a Ride. And you can feel that same grace note counter rhythm in his playing that he utilized the meat of his hand to get, that I ended up utilizing a lot in my songs. And of course, I always... He has some great sounds, and Jimmy played the Gibson Birdland for years, and whenever I'd go and see him, it was between a country gentleman, a Gretsch country gentleman, and a Gibson Birdland, and he had such a ringing sound to it. See, the one solo in Devil with the Blue Dress, let's see. Was that it? Kind of like that, but that biting sound... Kind of cute, isn't it? But you're right, there was one question asked about positioning oneself in front of the amplifiers. On stage, you know, I do a lot of dancing. And I am the best white dancer in the free world. You may have noticed this. The girls love it. In fact, the girls invented short skirts just to dance with me. Of course, now with the Spirit of the Wild album coming out, I understand they traded in their short skirts for a veil and a duck call. Now that's sexy. You don't know which to blow. Number 4, it says, can you demonstrate your behind-the-nut string bending? Well, actually, you don't want to get behind my nut, pal. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, what I do a lot of times, I have a song that goes... Oh, my... Kind of a nice touch. I did use the behind the nut string bending maneuvers a lot through my maneuvers, but mostly it is used when I get that just driving feedback when I go down instead of having a twang bar. I use the tailpiece, and what do they call this? A trapezoid? Trapeze tailpiece. Why the heck they call it that, I don't know. But nonetheless, I do grab a hold and swing on it on occasion. And I do a lot of things like... You really get that effect live when I bend down and actually destroy my poor, unwilling Gibson Birdland by getting it to feedback, because a lot of times on stage I'm able to lean into the speakers, push down hard on this low E string, and push it down so hard that I catch an octave, and then by just touching the vibrating string I get the overtone, and it sounds just like an incoming round. And it's a beautiful thing. Let's see, also, any tips for getting vibrato without a whammy bar? I think I just did that. And what is the secret of playing with your teeth? You've got to be a complete idiot. Once you become a complete idiot, you can play with your teeth. Actually, your teeth are your pick, not to be confused with a Spirit of the Wild pick. All right, let's talk a little bit about technique. All right, just for all you detailers out there, I use GHS and D'Angelico strings, and I use a 10, a 12, a 16, a 24, 34, 44. That's my basic string size. I always use a real thin pick. I think it's 52 thousandths. Was that what that is? It's a 52 something, and it's made by Legend Picks, because kids, I'm a living legend. Thank you very much. Thank you. These are special Spirit of the Wild picks that I got from a naked lady that was teaching cheerleading back in the 50s. And it also has my signature on it, so if you want to get a gift for a loved one that will leave a stain, get them one of these. Other than that, I don't use any tricks, man. I do use something real strange. If you're on my guitar right here, I use a Gretsch strap lock knob as my four-wheel drive switch in my instruments. So that way, when I have my front pickup on all the way, my back pickup on all the way with the bass rolled off, then I can get this incredible wah-wah effect. Kind of cute. Kind of cute. Let's see, all those years with hollow bodies, you must have had some insightful tips on string muting. I think we've gone over that. Again, I cannot emphasize enough the dynamic, the variable pulse that you can milk out of your instrument by using the meat of your pick hand. You've got to get that rolling rhythm with variable pressures on the string that can only be attained with the meat of your hand. You'll notice that all that pulsation can only be articulated and projected intensely if you've got variation based on the amount of meat you lay on the strings. Explain my gear setup. Guitars of choice. Through today I'm using almost exclusively PV 5150s because after I designed them for Eddie, I let him put his name on it. No, only serious. I'm only serious. I use PV 5150s because I believe that it is really the state-of-the-art amplifier. You got to find the amp that projects your guttural inner soul sonics. But that's currently today what I'm using. I've used Marshalls and Fenders and Hi-Watt and orange, tuck and rolled orange, Naugahyde whatsoever. In fact, that's the only hide I haven't taken from an animal is a Naugahyde. We're going Nauga hunting next week if you want me to get you some hide. But currently I'm using PV 5150s. I use two of them. I use two heads, stereo chorus. The only pedal I use is a little stereo chorus pedal that gets me a little bit of delay between the two sides. I put one speaker yonder and I put one speaker yonder, and I have them facing into my head. And of course my left ear, it's only there to balance my face off because it stopped working years ago. But that's not because of Gibson. It's more of a Smith & Wesson thing. I use little finger a lot. I'll show some licks. Well, damn it. Damn it anyhow. You've got these resources. Use them. I found that when I was being taught to play guitar by Joe Podorczyk at the Capitol School of Music in 1959, that he taught me this basic pattern. And I have found that that little finger is really essential in going places. And over the years, I've twisted and mutilated that basic premise. And there's a song called Out of Control where I use that lick at warp speed and I go... And you can see the little finger facilitates a lot of that movement. In fact, in Stranglehold, you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff. Let's see if I can remember the exact licks there. When the solo starts, it goes... And a little finger, if you've got it, use it. I particularly like this one lick that's kind of a blues-oriented thing where I go... Or it's important to use all your resources. Not only the little finger of your fingering hand, but the little finger of your picking hand. You've got a lot of extra fingers there. And if you look at my almighty Birdland guitar here, you will see the Nuge ridge right underneath the treble pickup, where I rest my little finger as an anchor. And because of all the velocity of this hand, that little finger beats that part of the wood up. But often you'll see that little finger come up and play some of the other licks when I'm finishing up a pattern. It's important to note too that I play a very thin pick, as I stated before, but I don't play it with the point. I play it with the rounded edge, and very little of that pick is showing when I'm playing, because I end up brushing the string with my finger and my thumb as much as I do the pick itself. And again, as I was emphasizing the importance of variant impact of the meat of your right hand on the strings, the same thing goes with the pick. I think you've got to hit your strings with varying intensity, so that you get those dynamics. What good would a dynamic be if it wasn't dynamic? Damn it. So I play with the rounded edge of my pick. I hit it very lightly. I may be known for being aggressive and crazed, but I really play with a gentle pick. Another question that's asked a lot is, do I use my volume controls often? Yes, I think if I was going to a Ted Nugent performance, which happens around the clock, by the way, I would be more fascinated with the volume and treble and bass knob controls and flapping the toggle switch up and down than I would the playing itself. Because in order to control, though that's a bad word because you don't want to ultimately control the birdland, you want to just rein it in so you can at least stay on that pony. And what I do is when I'm playing at full volume, because a good indication that my guitar is ready to beat up is based on how it wants to get away from me. When I turn it on, it's supposed to go. It says, take me, control me if you can. And what that means is that I can use that out of controlness to my advantage, to let notes feed back and to utilize the extreme sonics that are at my beck and call. What I do a lot is when I finish up a lick, instead of just turning the volume knob off or stopping playing, I immediately shut it off by throwing the toggle switch. For example, in Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, I go. Talk about massive wads of rehearsal now. When I was a young white guy growing up in the Motor City, and remember, we are the murder capital, not because we're more violent, we're just better damn shots. I love that. And by the way, would you like a Pez candy? Okay, what we do is we rehearse a lot to make sure that we stay on top of the musical invigoration that is available to us. And when I was growing up in Detroit, I would play my Birdlands and my Epiphones and my 335s. I'd play them so much that for years I had an enormous red welt across my chest because no one was saying, Tad, time to practice now. I was already up there just diving into it. I craved and currently crave past tense and present tense and future tense. I crave the instrument. So you've got to practice, but you've got to practice intelligent stuff. And if you get yourself a Chuck Berry record, all the Rolling Stones records, and the Ted Nugent collection, there you have it, kids. Just practice along with that, and it will inspire you to go places that other people will not go. And that's the name of the game, is more practice. The more you expand your source and your repertoire, the more you seek new and uncharted territories, the more you will be able to express yourself, thereby developing your own identity. And it's very important to develop your own identity. And now this last question stated, how do you come up with melodic solos that are memorable? I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's because when I'm not playing, this is very important, now write this down. When I'm not beating my guitar up, when I am not sucking the life blood out of my vision via my Gibson, I am not playing guitar, and I am going as far away from the sonic bombast, as far away from the electronic, concrete, hand-to-hand combat stress hell as I can possibly take myself. You know what I do when I'm not playing the guitar? I shut up. Yes, kids, write it down. Ted Nugent actually shuts up on weekends from 3 to 6. Thank you very much. You've got to look for diversionary tactics. I go hunting. That's right, I kill my family's dinner. It's good for you. It is a pure, natural function. The more you hunt with the bow and arrow, the cleaner your senses, the more in tune you are with your surroundings, and the more in tune you are, the more aware of your cause and effect on this planet, the more you want to get that guitar and just serenade your heart and soul into uncharted territories. There we are, back into those uncharted territories again. You've got to expand your consciousness via hands-on experience. So remember, life is like an arrow. You can either put it in the bullseye or a moose heart, or you can shoot yourself in the foot. It's like it was just yesterday. And so when I get back from the swamps, I have these melodies just dying to get out of my system. And when I play, I just seek patterns. I don't know any scales. The only scale I know is the one I hang my dead deer from. Not to say that if you can learn some scales, go for it. It will help expand your repertoire. But I find that other sources in life expand my repertoire. When I'm in E, you can start with your basic E patterns down here. And you go up here. But I found other places to go. When I'm in E, I can just find notes that don't traditionally fit, but I like them, such as... Now, I don't know if there was a scale in there anyplace, but if there is, I'm not aware of it. I'm just looking for notes that turn me on. The instrument is supposed to turn you on. If you are turned on, you are living it up. All right, so before we go into this jam session, let me just say, let's go away and loosen up and bowl a few frames. Bowling with Ted. I love that part. Now let's jam, kids. we'll go through another couple of classic Nugent maneuvers here. I mean, that rhythm and blues demon can't be stopped. You've got to get the R&B flavor. The girls love it, and that should be enough for all of us. Hey Baby personifies that. Derek St. Holmes made this maneuver, and it goes... Now, of course, when the rhythm guitar went to that line, I went... So that's kind of cute, too. And, of course, one of my favorites, Just What the Doctor Ordered, because look around you, I am just what the doctor ordered. One of my favorites, it's an anthem. It's a Motor City thing. It's the Motor City Madhouse lick. It's cute. And then the second half, the guitar came in and went... Great lick. And then we've got a damn Yankee move. I'm so proud to be a damn Yankee. We're all a bunch of damn Yankees. Tommy Shaw, Jack Blades, Michael Cardelloni. You deserve me, guys. This is a song that we put together, and it's called Don't Tread on Me. It was originally called Don't Ted on Me. There's a couple of songs, I've touched on some of the songs of the new Spirit of the Wild album, because you've got to keep the spirit of the wild strong and free. This is one of the greatest songs I've ever enjoyed playing, and this is a song called Tooth, Fang, and Claw. And it starts out real pretty and real arpeggio, and it's a deviation on the old D, A, and E maneuver, and it goes... And the great thing about it is that I use the solid body for an answering technique. And this is where the Paul Reed Smith really shines, because after the first verse, the Paul Reed Smith is used to go... So you get the combination of the big fat Gibson and the... Which some licks like that are only attainable with the almighty twang bar. And if you've never played a PRS twang bar, you haven't lived. It's a dive bomber's delight. Okay, now, also on the Spirit of the Wild is an incredible James Brown influence song. And it's called Shoot Back, because I believe that if you have a date with your children and someone tries to get in your way, you might want to listen to these lyrics and shoot back. Thank you very much. Remember, kids, the only good bad guy is a dead bad guy. Drive safely. This is a song called Shoot Back. And even though it's got an extravagant, extended sonic maneuver for an intro, the basic meat of the song, that's meat, like in meat, across the street. I say, come on, baby, you can taste my meat. And it goes like this. was it? Basically what that is, it's a undulating, throbbing, high-velocity bass pattern on the bottom strings. With a mutilated ninth chord over the whole wad. I imagine in the key of D, that would end up being a G ninth. How's that, Maestro? Thank you very much. Or it could even be considered the flatted third of the D chord. But I'd like to think that it's a ripoff from the old Rolling Stones when they did I Want to Be Your Man. And that went... But that's a whole different story. Shoot back. Also, here's a great song on the Spirit of the Wild record. This, again, shows that deep down inside my dream and my fantasy, I am, Ted Nugent, a huge black man in the bowels of the Motown rhythm section. Huge. Blacker than a Maasai warrior with a spear to boot. Only I call mine the Gibson. And this is a lick. I guess this comes from my rhythm and blues black heroes and guys that had the same heroes like the Young Rascals. But this is a great lick called Love Jacker. Because kids, I am your love jacker. And this is a great horn part, horns being my specialty. This is a great horn part on the guitar that goes... Equally as important as the lick itself is how that lick evolved. In fact, it didn't evolve. It just kind of blurted, splurted, jumped out of me one day. I was tuning my guitar going... That's basically how I tune my guitar to form chords, and I go... What is that? And a star was born. This just shows you that diversionary tactics are very, very important for expanding your musical repertoire. So don't hold back. Shoot back. So remember, my friends, sometimes you give the world the best you got and you get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you got anyhow. And keep your baby in a stranglehold. A 1, 2, 3, 4.